When a jealous stepmom dumps her paralyzed stepson in the middle of the forest, he is tracked down by a hungry bear. Fearing for his life, the boy has no way of escaping. What the bear does is unthinkable. Veronica had broken out in a sweat. Alexei was only small and light, but pushing his wheelchair through the forest was no easy feat, and they'd been going for a few hours now. Veronica needed the boy to be deep in the forest, though, so deep that no one would find him. In that, there was a chance he would be able to wheel himself out. Thoughts of being able to finally have children with the boy's father, Dmitri, kept her going. The boy thought they were out for a nice walk, and to keep up the act, Veronica kept pointing animals, insects, and flowers out to him. All Alexei had done was get in her way. She tried to be cold to the boy, but here he was, actually believing she wanted to spend the day out with him. When they came to a small clearing in the forest, Veronica stopped pushing Alexei. All had gone quiet, and when Alexei tried to speak to Veronica, he got no response. He tried turning around in his wheelchair, and that's when he saw Veronica running back through the trees. She'd left him all alone in the forest. As more time passed, it became clear to the boy that his stepmom had abandoned him on purpose, and he began to cry. There was no way he would be able to get out of the forest, and Veronica had told him bears and wolves lived around here. Between sobs, the boy began to hear the rustling of leaves and twigs snapping. He looked around him and noticed a flash of brown fur moving between the trees. Just then, the looming figure broke free of the bushes, and standing in front of Alexei was a huge brown bear. Panic flooded Alexei's body as the bear reared up on its hind legs and let out a long, low growl. Veronica had left him alone to die, and now he was going to be savagely attacked by a bear. The boy shrunk back into his wheelchair and screwed his eyes tightly shut, praying that he somehow survived. When Alexei was born, doctors had told his parents that he would be wheelchair-bound for the rest of his life. His mother hadn't been able to handle the news and struggled to form a bond with her son. The pressure of having a disabled child proved to be too much. And just 2 months after Alexei was born, his mother packed her things and left in the night. Alexei's father, Dmitri, was heartbroken. It didn't matter to him that his son was disabled, and he tried his best to support his wife and make her see his way of thinking, but it had all been pointless, and now she was gone. Dmitri swore he would do everything he could to care for his son, even if it meant making huge personal sacrifices. For the next few years, Dmitri pushed aside his own life to care for his son. He'd only had 1 or 2 friends left, and thankfully his parent was still around to help out, but Dmitri was lonely. He'd had no time for dating as Alexei took up all his time. He didn't blame the boy, but it was a very lonely life. Thankfully, one of his friends said he had a work colleague that he thought Dmitri would get along with. When he first met Veronica, they seemed to have an instant connection. Dmitri was blown away by how kind and caring Veronica was, and before long, the pair were dating. Even though he told Veronica all about Alexei, he felt some reservations about introducing his new girlfriend to his son. Much to Dmitri's delight, after a few months of dating Veronica, he decided to let her meet Alexei and was overjoyed when the pair instantly hit it off. Veronica was kind and caring to Alexei, and the boy seemed to like having a motherly figure around. Dmitri was so pleased that he asked Veronica to move in with them. Not long after, Dmitri proposed to Veronica. The young woman seemed to really embrace her new life. She was a brilliant wife to Dmitri and helped out with Alexei's care, keen to learn how to properly look after the boy. But it didn't take long for things to change. Veronica had been hiding a dark side to her, and she was about to let it out. When Dmitri wasn't around, Veronica stopped paying attention to Alexei. He'd become a burden. She actually hadn't minded that Dmitri already had a child, and she hadn't even been bothered by the fact that Alexei was paralyzed. But she hadn't realized how much time was taken up caring for the boy. She always felt like Dmitri had little time left for her, but the real blow came when Dmitri told her that he didn't want any more kids. Veronica had always assumed that she and Dmitri would have at least 1 child. She wanted children of her own, but instead, she was stuck being a stepmom. She was angry at Dmitri and felt like they weren't a proper family. But most of all, she resented Alexei, the boy who had taken away all her dreams. When Dmitry told Veronica he needed to go away on a business trip, Veronica saw the perfect opportunity to finally get the family she wanted. Once again, she played the good wife and loving stepmother and promised Dmitry that she would take good care of Alexei while he was away. But she was secretly formulating a plan to get rid of the boy once and for all. A couple of days after Dmitry had left, Veronica told Alexei she wanted to take him to the forest. She told the boy she'd grown up playing in the forest and wanted to show him all the fascinating plants and animals. She promised to pack lots of sweet drinks and flasks of hot chocolate for their adventure. Alexei was very excited about the trip. He'd noticed Veronica had been a bit cold with him lately, but hoped that this would mark a change in their relationship. Alexei was thoroughly enjoying Veronica pushing him and pointing out all the birds and animals. It was a beautiful autumn day with a chill in the air, but the sun shining bright. He hardly noticed how far into the forest they came. When they came to a clearing, the pair stopped, and Alexei assumed his stepmom just wanted a rest. Maybe she would get out the hot chocolate she told him she packed. But when Alexei asked Veronica a question, he was met with complete silence. He struggled to turn, but caught sight of Veronica running off through the trees. Why had she left him there? The boy decided his stepmom might have dropped something and was going back to look for it. But it was strange she'd never said anything to him. They'd been having a lovely day, so it never crossed Alexei's mind that Veronica had purposely left him alone. Back in the safety of her car, Veronica laughed to herself. Sure, it had been hard pushing the boy all that way, but she couldn't believe how easy it had been to fool him. She'd tell Dmitry that there was a tragic accident while they were out walking. Then, with the boy gone, they could be a proper family just like she'd always dreamed. When an hour had passed, Alexei began to cry. He was deep in the forest and all alone. With each passing minute, it became clearer that Veronica wasn't coming back for him. The tough terrain meant he couldn't wheel himself out, and even if he'd been able to, he had no idea what direction would lead him out of the forest. It slowly dawned on the scared young boy that Veronica hadn't wanted a nice day out at all. She just wanted to get rid of him. Soon it would be dark, and without any cover, Alexei was exposed to all the animals in the forest. He heard a rustling and branches cracking behind him. Struggling to turn his head around, he could just make out the flash of brown fur moving between the trees. Alexei was terrified. Veronica had told him bears and wolves lived in this forest, and he was pretty sure that was something she wasn't lying about. Breaking free from the cover of the trees, a huge brown bear came into sight. Alexei began to panic even more. The bear's paws were huge. One swipe would probably be enough to kill him. The bear slowly made his way over to Alexei, sniffing the air as he walked. Alexei was now uncontrollably shaking. Did his stepmom hate him this much? The bear approached the boy slowly and sniffed all around him. Alexei just wanted this moment to be over. He closed his eyes tightly and said silent prayers to himself. But then the bear did something extraordinary. He nudged and nuzzled the boy's hand, as if to tell him he would be safe. Alexei slowly opened his eyes to see he was face to face with the bear. He saw an understanding in the bear's eyes as the animal bent down and nudged his hand again. Did the bear want a stroke? Tentatively, Alexei raised his hand and ran his fingers down the bear's head and neck. The bear nudged him more urgently, like he wanted to do it again. Soon, Alexei's tears were replaced with laughter at the bear's curious antics. Sensing he'd done his duty in making the boy smile, the large animal sat down next to the wheelchair as if guarding the boy from danger. As Alexei ran his fingers through the bear's fur, a sense of relief washed over him. He knew it was unlikely that anyone would be walking through the forest, but he didn't want to give up hope. With the bear by his side, he instantly felt better. Little did the boy know that not too far from where he was, there was a cabin that belonged to an old man. The man had always dreamed of living in the forest, but when he'd met his wife many years ago, they had had children and settled in the city where they had good jobs and access to good schools. When his wife had died 10 years ago, he didn't want to stay in the house he shared with her, so he finally carried out his dream of moving to the forest. As night began to fall, the man set out on his daily walk. He loved going out as the sun was setting. Not only did it look beautiful, but he loved noticing the changes in the forest as different animals began to come out for the evening. He'd lived in the forest for 10 years, but it showed him something new every day. He wasn't prepared for what it would show him today, though. The man walked along whistling a jolly tune to himself when suddenly he stopped in his tracks. Just off in the distance, he could see a young boy in a wheelchair all alone. The man was speechless. It was very rare that he ever saw anyone else in the forest, so for a young child to be on their own, he knew something was wrong. He rushed towards the boy, but just before he could approach him, a huge bear came darting out of the bushes. The old man was used to seeing bears around the forest, but knew to keep out of their way. He'd never been this close to one before. He feared for his and the boy's life. The only thing he could think to do was scare the bear away, so he began shouting and waving his arms. Thankfully, the bear began to back away, but then the strangest thing happened. The boy shouted at him to stop. Shocked at the boy's response, the man instantly stopped shouting and looked at the child. The boy began to quickly explain that the bear had spent hours looking after him and protecting him. The man had never heard such a story, but the whole time the boy had been talking to the man, the bear had stayed close to the boy's side, never once looking like he would hurt him. The old man slowly knelt down in front of the boy and spoke out loud, reassuring the bear that he was there to help. The bear seemed to accept that the man also wanted to look after the boy. The old man asked Alexei why he was in the forest all alone, and the boy told him how his stepmother had dumped him there and run away. He told him all about the bear snuggling into him and keeping guard to make sure he was safe. The man had never heard of such cruelty from another human and such tenderness from an animal. The old man asked the boy if he would like to go back to his cabin with him for a drink and some food. He told the boy he would have to phone the police when they got there, though. Alexei nodded before turning to the bear and wrapping his arms around it. The young boy wanted the bear to know how thankful he was. The bear watched on as the old man took Alexei to his cabin. Once back at the cabin, the old man gave Alexei some food and water. He added more logs to the fire to warm the boy up, then phoned the police to explain he'd found a child abandoned in the forest. He knew the story sounded crazy, so he was thankful that they believed him. The police said they would come as quick as they could, but seeing as the old man lived deep in the forest, it would probably be a few hours before they could reach him. With a full belly and warmth from the fire, Alexei began to feel tired. The old man helped the boy onto the couch and covered him with a blanket. Before long, Alexei couldn't fight it anymore, and he was fast asleep. A few hours passed, then there was a knock on the door of the cabin, which woke the young boy up. It took him a moment to realize where he was and what had happened that day. When the old man answered, the police were standing outside. They took a statement from the man and Alexei, then took the boy to the hospital to be checked over. As the boy left the cabin, he hugged the old man and thanked him for all his help. He told the old man that he'd be sure to tell everyone what a hero he was. The old man smiled with a tear in his eye. He hoped the boy would be okay and that his stepmom would pay for what she'd done. While Alexei was in the hospital, the police contacted Dmitry. He couldn't believe what Veronica had done and immediately flew home, desperate to see his son. The guilt he felt over leaving Alexei was immense, but he truly believed that Veronica cared about the boy. He was shocked at how she tricked him. Due to the accusations against Veronica, she was detained and questioned by the police. She tried to deny it, but before long, her anger and resentment toward Alexei came through, and she admitted everything. She told the police she hated the boy and wanted a proper family with Dmitry. All Alexei did was get in the way of everything, so she wanted him gone. She never had any intention of going back for the boy or telling anyone where he was. She had a whole lie worked out to tell Dmitry. She even convinced herself that in time, Dmitry would be relieved that he no longer had to care for his son. Dmitry blamed himself for leaving Alexei in Veronica's care and for not realizing what sort of person she was. He couldn't get over how she completely fooled him into believing that she wanted to be a motherly figure to Alexei. Veronica's trial was tough for everyone, But when she was sentenced to prison for the attempted murder of Alexei, Dmitry felt like he could finally move on. All he wanted to do was put the past with Veronica behind him and make a new life for him and his son. True to his word, Alexei told Dmitry all about the old man in the forest, and Dmitry agreed the man was a hero. He couldn't believe the story of the bear either, and part of him wondered if the boy had made that up as a way to cope with what had happened to him. Dmitry didn't know how he would ever be able to thank the old man in the forest, but when he and Alexei visited that man, he was shocked to learn that everything his son had said about the bear was true. From then on, Dmitry and Alexei regularly visited the old man, which seemed to please him. He didn't get many visitors. His children all had busy lives in the city. Before long, the old man treated Alexei like he was his grandson. He told Alexei tales of the forest and how he would regularly see a bear walking near his cabin, and he was sure it was the same one that had protected him that day. Thanks to the protective instincts of the bear and the kindness of the old man, Alexei had survived a nightmare. Alexei would never forgive Veronica for what she'd done, but without that incident, he would never have had the amazing memories of the bear, and he would never have met the old man that he now called Grandpa. Now it's over to you. What did you think of this story? Do you think animals can sense when humans need help? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.